very modern cities, and then you think, okay, that is capitalism. But no people going deep into the countryside to know the details in countryside. Okay. So, caused by this mainstream discourse, people believe that the more agriculture, the more poor, and then the government, the authority, no matter whatever ism you believe, you need to set up pro-capital policy to absorb FDI, all private investments, and then for your development. That is very popular. No matter who, even you, to be the mayor or to be the president or the premier, anyway, if you stop, and then immediately you kick out. Whatever ism, that is another thing. But one thing is truth. If you think that you're in agriculture, and your people is poor, you need to set up industry. You need first to pass the primitive accumulation of industrial capital. Where is the capital come from? If from outside, your debts. You need to pay back debts. And then the investors want you to change your institution. Because not apply to these investors. That is originally South countries suffer. Because your culture, your characteristics, not apply these Western institutions. But you have to change. And then you have a conflict. So that is not, the problem in developing countries is the problem, but not the problem of developing countries. It's caused by Western countries. Look at this, just now you showed the Dujiangyan. I said this 2,500 years ago. It's historical heritage taken by modern China. Now every authority, no matter dynasties or party leaders, all need to protect to make this thousands of years, and then now irrigate the agricultural area. So that is a history. And this one is Egypt. It's in very traditional Egyptian tomb. We found that this agricultural society, they have the similar phenomena like Asia, like China, like India. If you go to find the things are similar, and the people the same face, you can see that different, no difference, and no big muscle and no big hands. Everything is same. So it's a kind of group culture, group-based culture, not individual-based culture, and not Western culture. So agricultural society is similar. It's their livelihoods. So by such kind of summarize, we can find that most larger indigenous and tribe population countries cannot jump into Western model industrialization and urbanization, but Oriental small households living in village community. So the common wealth and the common properties belong to community society. So if you break the communal society, you will have no common wealth and common properties. So when you visit Zhouzhuang village or you visit the Huaxi village, you may find that they still have a public ownership. It's not owned by public, by villagers themselves. So it's a commune ownership. It's a collective. Means that they also exclude others. They only control these properties no matter how big. Like Huaxi, annually net income 5 billion. It's big money, but belong to village, not belong to any outside village. So that is a community ownership. They control these properties. So when we talk about these things, we will question. Is there any successful model of agricultural modernization among advantaged countries, among Western countries? No. But huge subsidies and the geopolitical control. You may say that American agriculture is successful. You ask American farmers, they say no. And you ask Australian farmers, is a successful model? They said no. If you go to Europe, European farmers tell you no, certainly not. And then, look at this one. Is there any successful model of urbanization in developing country? If you go to slum, the local people will tell you, no, we are poor, even that we are citizens, but we cannot enjoy any city life. Yes? So, if you set up slum for accelerate the urbanization, it's not a successful model, no matter how percentage you have. So, fortunately or unfortunately, China now accelerates urbanization with no big slum. Small one maybe, but not big. We don't have big slum. Nowadays, maybe 46% of urbanization. I mean, population living in urban area, 46%. Up to now, no big slum. So slow down, I think it's more better. Here, let me give you a reflection of China. What is China? You said socialist country, Communist Party, whatever. It's all ideology made by West-centric philosophy, not from our traditional culture. What is China? After land revolution, China is the largest PD rural country. 88% of the rural people out of modernization, it means delinking. You may know that somewhere mean talking about linking and delinking. When we finish our land revolution, means that 90% of Chinese people out of the urban capital, they are delinking. Because of delinking, China solved the problem of high inflation. 1920s, 1930s, China joined the competition of the world modernization. China immediately fell in the trap of high inflation and ruining out the countryside, and conflicts turned to revolution. After revolution, equal district land means that they regain their traditional society. People live in community. They help each other, and then they have a common wealth and common properties. So they go back tradition, and then they out of the crisis. That is 1949. From 1950, changed by industrialization. And then half-century industrialization, we have a biggest middle-class population now in China. When you visit Hangzhou, why I want you to go there? Because Hangzhou, middle class, over 50% of the population. The government needs to change the governance to apply middle class. Hangzhou is a typical middle class city. You'd better to be there to know what is middle class. And then they also have a working class, like I mentioned, Mr. Xu Rencai. He's a leader of a grassroots network, that is migrant network. So we will have some big change. And after, well, I think that maybe within 5 or 10 years, we will have a working class and capital class. Capitalist class and working class, they will have a conflict. There's a kind of contradiction leading the society change. So nowadays, we said China is a kind of very typical triangle society. The upper one, less than 5%. They mean it's a big rich. Less than 5% is rich. And the middle class, 25%. And another 70% still petty bourgeoisie. It means small property holders and something. So it's a stabilized as a kind of pyramid. Yes? So if China turns its pyramid into the working class and the poor people to be larger, the large number is of poor people and the working class, that will be upside down. So that is why Chinese always concern about stability. We must maintain the stability because that up to now is the biggest population country, cannot upside down. Here, look at the population. By the crisis. Next one is a crisis in 1930s. From 1934, caused by the 29 to 33 worldwide crisis, China very much impacted by such kind of world crisis. So 1934 is a silver flow out, deflation happened in China, very much harmed the private capitalism, nationalist capitalism. So falling into the crisis, so these are poor people in 1930s. Now it's 2008, caused by the world crisis. Many people lost jobs. You may not know that 25 million workers laid off. I ask you, any country can stand 25 million workers layoff. Oh no, 25 million. It's a big number. If it happened in your country, but you follow? Chaos. But in China, what happened? You haven't seen that it's silent. Like I mentioned that we have a lot of people sit at corner and keep quiet. Why Chinese silent? Because during these years, from 1999, Chinese policy think tank understand we are now in the overproduction. Similar the problem as Western countries in 1930s. Now we need to solve the problem. So from 1999, started to use the government's hands for bonds investments. 10 years passed. Chinese governments invested into the infrastructure construction in countryside, in Western China and Mid-China and Northeast China, 10 trillions. 10 trillion means $1.5 trillion of dollars. Think about American. When they have the problem, they give big money to financial sector. When Chinese facing the challenge of the crisis, Chinese invest into the physical production. So that is different. So if you want to know the difference, certainly when you give a large amount of money invest in the physical production, you need to occupy more land, natural resources, and then more pollution. But finally, you make people to have a job, and then they can have an income, their family survival by such kind of big crisis over the world. So that is different. We understand we do have a big problem. Still severe pollution. Increase fast. But you give me another way. Can we find other way out? No pollution, but still can make this 25 million laid-off workers to have a cash income, and then their family can keep life. That is a big challenge. So compare with it's a two side, two pictures. You can see that what is the difference. All caused by world crisis, not domestic, world crisis. That is 1930s. Created fightings and conflicts and revolutions. You know that Chinese Red Army in 1930s and the guerrilla movement in 1930s and so many things happened in that time. This time, conflicts, yeah, but not turn to the guerrilla movements. It's a big population country, so many contradictions. Here is a so-called primitive accommodation in old China. That's one, in old China, by landlord. That's also exploitation. But here, in Mao's China, by collective system, people concentrate their labor, investing into the constructions with little pay. They exploit themselves for primitive accommodation of state industrialization. That's different. Old China, you exploited by landlord, or out of village landlord. But New China, you believe that whole people's ownership, you exploited yourself. You contribute whatever is surplus to state, and then you finish primitive accommodation for your industrialization. Now China became the biggest industrial country, caused by China exploited this billion people by themselves. So we do have exploitation. Now here is inflation. That's one you may not know what is the number. The number is 6 billion. 1 bill, 6 billion. And then here, down here, there's equal 10,000. 6 billion equal 10,000. Means that in 1948, Chinese old governments facing the challenge of financial crisis, they need to deal with this big decrement of the currency, and then fall into the trap, collapse. So when we talk about the dual system between rural and urban, you may know that from the urban society, they contribute two kinds of surplus to the state industrial capital. That is a primitive capital accumulation for state industrialization. So one is that the seizures, price seizures, the governments take large surplus from agriculture. Here is also the labor surplus. So we said when Russians stop investment, China used the labor replace capital. That is China. Now reform. That's forget. Finally, let's begin the conclusion of Chinese experience. That is government's cooperation for the development. That is a so-called Chinese real experience. The government's not government. Government's government's cooperation. So, by such kind of institution, follow reform is past dependence. Now, when you talk about totalitarian system, let me tell you, no. Here is there's a dark curve. It's a central budget. This one is local. When 1957, Soviet Union stopped investment. Central down from 80% down to 20%. So there's no centralization, no central power since 1957. 60s, 70s, until 80s, all localization. Until 1994, changed to half-half. So up to now, local do have some power for do whatever for themselves. Now there's also the physical capacity. If you want to do rural construction or rural reconstruction, you need investment. Investment from not markets, from the governments.